Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, dear viewers. Welcome to another episode of our JK and Fatawa videos. So, in this episode, we will discuss the second part to the menstruating women performing Hajj. So, in this video, we'll be discussing some common questions that many menstruating women ask. Before we begin, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video for Sadaqah Jariyah, and follow us on other various social media platforms, and visit our website for weekly Fatawa updates in the link below. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So, in the previous video, we discussed some important generic rules related to menstruating women who are performing Hajj and Umrah. In this particular video, we'll be focusing on some of the most common questions that many sisters do ask. Now, before we begin, it's important I do highlight that it is important to plan your trip, as I concluded in the previous video, that when it comes to menstruation, it is very complicated, it's very complex, so therefore it's very important for sisters to plan everything beforehand, to ensure you know your dates really well. And if you are confused, if you're still unsure about your menstruation dates, always consult an APA, a qualified and experienced APA in this field. Consult in regards to your dates and menstruation before traveling for Umrah or Hajj. This is so to avoid complications. Now, there are a few questions I'm going to be addressing, which many of the sisters do ask. So the first question is that can she take menstruating pills to stop her periods? So is it permissible for a woman to take the pills that stop menstrual bleeding? The answer generically is yes, it is permissible. There's no harm in that. But if in the case that she does take the menstrual pills, the second question to that is then that if she sees spotting after taking the pills, then will that be classed as period? This is a very common question that many sisters do ask. So if, for example, if you're a sister that after taking the menstrual pills and your bleeding has stopped for some time, and then all of a sudden you begin to see spottings, then what's the ruling regarding that? Now, if you do see some spottings, then and they fulfill the colors of and they are amongst the colors of the menstrual bleeding, then depending upon what your habit is, you will determine that accordingly. So if you take the pills at the time that where it is, it does fall in within your normal monthly menstrual habits, and you begin to see some spottings after that, then that could be classed as your menstruation. That could be classed as your menstruation. So therefore, be very extra careful. Do ensure that that you are fully prepared on this, and do expect that there is no guarantee that the menstrual pills may not necessarily stop your bleeding. So if you do see some spottings, if it is within the time frame, if it's within your periods, then periods time, that will be then classed as your menstrual periods, depending on the days and so on and so forth. Number three is that what is the penalty for performing tawaf whilst menstruating? So what if, for example, a woman, she's menstruating, she did not know the masala, she did not know the ruling, and when she's performing tawaf ziyarat, now tawaf ziyarat is one of the, as I explained in the previous video, tawaf ziyarat is a fard, is one of the main faraid of Hajj, and it's usually performed between the 10th of Zil Hijjah to the 12th of Zil Hijjah. Between the 10th of Zil Hijjah to the 12th of Zil Hijjah. And if a woman, she did not generally know the masala, and she started her menstrual bleeding, and during the tawaf and whilst menstruation, between the 10th and the 12th, she performed her tawaf ziyarat. So what's the ruling? So if the tawaf ziyarat if the tawaf is ziyarat, if it's a tawaf is ziyarat, obviously, then it will result in a badana. A badana means sacrificing a large animal, which is a cow or a camel. So if she does perform a tawaf is ziyarat in that particular state, then she will have to sacrifice as a penalty a large animal, which is a cow or a camel, which is referred to as a badana which is known as a badana in the technical terms. But that's to do with tawaf ziyarat. But what about other tawafs? What about the case of other tawafs? So, for example, if it's a nafil tawaf, if it's a sunnah tawaf, or if it's a wajib tawaf, or if it's a tawaf umrah, and she started and during menstruation she performed any of these tawafs. So, what's the ruling regarding that? So, in this case, a menstruating woman, where there's a wajib tawaf, for example, tawaf wida, whether it's a sunnah tawaf, whether there's a nafil tawaf, or where is even if it's a tawaf umrah, then this will incur a dam. Then she will have to pay a dam. And the dam, as I explained in the previous video, it is sacrificing a sheep or a goat, or it could be a share of a large animal, because usually a large animal, it could be divided into maximum 7 shares. So one share, 1/7, one share of a large animal, that will constitute a dam also. So if it's a wajib, nafil, sunnah, or a tawaf, sunnah tawaf, or maybe a tawaf umrah, then she can perform. Then she'll have to pay the penalty of a dam. But there is a ruling that the scholars do mention, that despite incurring a penalty in the case of tawaf ziyarah is a badana, in the case of other tawafs other than a tawaf ziyarah, it is a dam. If she repeats any of the both tawafs after becoming clean, then the dam and the badana will now be dropped. Okay, she be now absolved because she's repeated the tawaf. She repeated those tawafs after becoming clean and pure. Now the penalty that she had incurred initially, that is now dropped. Another question is that, is there a dam for delaying the tawaf ziyarah due to menses? As I mentioned, the tawaf ziyarah is performed between the 10th and the 12th of Zulhijjah, and delaying the tawaf ziyarah beyond that, it incurs a dam, because one of the essentials wajib, one of the wajib acts of Hajj is that you perform everything in its correct time. So now, because of the fact that delaying, if somebody, generally speaking, if somebody was to delay the tawaf ziyarah beyond the 10th and the 12th without an excuse, then they incur a dam. But however, a menstruating woman, she's absolved. There's an exception for her. So if she was to delay her tawaf ziyarah for a genuine reason, uh, uh, outside of these stipulated days. So, because, for example, she's menstruating, she cannot perform the tawaf ziyarah, obviously. So she waits for her menstruation to complete. She waits until she becomes clean, and by the time she becomes clean, it's going to be after the times of tawaf ziyarah days, between the 10th and the 12th. If she becomes clean after that and then she does tawaf ziyarah, there is no penalty on her. Another question, that is there a dam if she misses her farewell tawaf due to menses? Tawaf wida, this is known as tawaf wida or tawaf sadr, in which the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, the last and final tawaf that an haji needs to perform is tawaf wida. Now, just as a clarification here, this tawaf wida, which is the final, the farewell tawaf, is only exclusive for Hajj. It is not for Umrah. Many people, it has come to my attention that many people assume that tawaf wida and the farewell tawaf is for umrah. That's not the case. It is only prescribed for hajj, and that is a wajib. So if a woman, after completing all of the hajj acts, for example, okay, she's completed all of the hajj rituals, then she starts menstruating. Now she begins to menstruate and she does not have the time to perform a tawaf wida, then that tawaf wida is now dropped from her. She's absolved from that. So if she menstruates, provided that she didn't, after completing all the Hajj rituals, provided that she doesn't have sufficient time to perform the Tawaf wida, then that Tawaf wida is now dropped. There's no penalty on her. Now, another question, if a woman is performing Umrah, completes Tawaf, and then menstruates before Sa'i, well, then what is the ruling? This is another question that we have received, that there was a particular sister that she was doing her Tawaf Umrah, and then after completing her Tawaf Umrah, before she went to Safa Marwa, she started menstruating. So what's the ruling regarding that? The answer is she can continue with the Safa Marwa. There's no penalty. It's because purity is not conditional for Safa Marwa. Like we know that in the case of tawaf, you have to be in the state of purity, right? During Safa Marwa, purity is not essential. So even if a person breaks the wudu, for example, after performing the tawaf, if they were to break the wudu, for example, anywhere, whether they be a male or a female, and then they do Safa Marwa, there's no harm in that at all. So purity is not conditional when it comes to Safa Marwa mountain. So in this case, a woman, after completing her tawaf umrah, for example, if now before she starts Safa Marwa, she starts menstruating, there's no harm in that. She can just continue with her Safa Marwa, and her tawaf and her umrah will be complete. And that's the case with all of the instances. Because remember, what did the Prophet say to say that Aisha radiallahu anha, which I discussed in the previous video, the Prophet said that complete all of the ritual acts except for tawaf. So which means the Prophet excluded Safa Marwa. So Safa Marwa, to perform is permissible even if you're not in the state of purity. And the final question is that if a woman, after becoming pure, performs tawaf and notices blood stains on her cloth, then must she repeat the tawaf? So this is another question that people, a common question, that let's say there's a woman that she was menstruating. She waited for her to become clean before she performs Umrah. Now she's had a bath, ritual bath. She's changed her clothes. She's put on her clothes, and now she's making her way to the mataf to do her tawaf Umrah, to do her tawaf Umrah. But then she notices patches of blood on her clothes. So she's already clean, but she's noticed some patches of her blood, and she's done tawaf and she's done Safa Marwa. What's the ruling regarding that? Now, is her tawaf valid or not? The answer is that the tawaf is still valid, because the cleansing, because the purity of the cloth is a sunnah. Purity of the cloth is sunnah. A person needs to be in the state of purity in terms of wudu and so on whilst performing tawaf. But for the clothes to be clean during tawaf and Safa Marwa, it is a sunnah. So even if anyone, even if maybe a male, if they have any impure stains on their clothes, on the ihram, for example, in the case of the male, if they have it on the ihram, even if it is more than a dirham, more than a 50 pence or a £2 coin, doesn't matter, the tawaf is still valid. So these are some of the common questions. If you have any further queries, if you have any further questions, you can email us through the to our JKN Fatawa, to our JKN Fatawa website. The link is in the description below. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.